Alright, gods and goddesses in training, welcome back to the channel. It is Uncle Makara. All relations. Today we're talking all about the concept of regret, okay? Now, I had a session very early this morning, and this specific client of mine was talking about feeling this deep sense of regret. And so I thought, what better way to explore this topic than to share it with you guys on this video today, because this is something that a lot of us struggle with. What I've noticed is a lot of people coming into my office are experiencing this split or a disconnection from source energy. They're feeling the sense of living in a different reality than everybody else. And this is actually what's happening in the world, because it shows that loneliness is at epidemic levels. Many feel not just alone, but they feel fundamentally disconnected. Okay? So that means abstract thinking has fragmented human consciousness to make true communication nearly impossible. And abstract systems like bureaucracy, algorithms, ideologies, standardized education have reduced people to these different categories, right? And labels, stripping away the living human connection. So there's this idea from Rudolf Steiner called dead thinking versus living thinking. And I honestly think that regret is dead thinking. Okay, because it creates a rigid category, a judgment, an echo chamber, a polarization, an inability to cooperate, and so forth. Whereas living thinking is more flexible, it's fluid, it observes directly, it sees patterns, it can hold paradox, and it can recognize the spiritual unity in others. So social media and digital systems amplify abstraction, right? People see avatars, metrics, and categories, not human beings. So the result is, of course, more dehumanization, polarization, loneliness, and a kind of a systemic dysfunction too, especially in regards to mental health. So true connection happens in a living spiritual dimension where there's meaning, empathy, and creative understanding, which actually abstraction or confusion blocks, right? So everyone can develop perception to access this invisible dimension through practice, not belief. Like pure observation without categorizing things, an evening review of your day backwards, holding paradoxes in your mind without rushing to resolve them, sensing the care or fear behind opposing views, and studying groups focused on perception, not debate, okay? I think a lot of the times we get into this competition mentality, especially in this day and age, and we forget to cooperate, we forget to connect, we forget to feel this sense of belonging, right? And we are these social creatures, but why are we not creating belonging every single day? You see? Why are we not being grateful for the lives that we have now? So I believe that humanity is at a crossroads. We either develop living thinking to restore connection and heal divisions and build systems that actually serve life and kundalini, or we follow the path of abstraction, more split mind, more fragmentation, more ecological collapse, and more existential dread and meaninglessness. So just like there's a difference between real guilt and indoctrinated guilt, what is real guilt? Real guilt is when you knowingly and consciously did something wrong, okay? You can't deny it, you did something wrong, all right? That's absolutely valid. And it cannot be released internally. It requires actually making amends to the person that you harmed or to society, right? But indoctrinated guilt is guilt implanted by parents, by teachers, by society, or maybe even yourself, often for things that were not truly wrong, right? Success, sexuality, leaving a relationship, past unawareness. Like this can be only released internally, right? Through awareness and self-reprogramming. So There's completely indoctrinated guilt, which is feeling guilty for feeling wealthy or successful when it was hard work and you earned it properly. This is a false conditioning. But then there's the self-indoctrinated guilt, which is feeling guilty for past mistakes made from unawareness, right? So your consciousness wasn't mature enough to act better at that time. And if you had truly known better, then you would have acted differently. Now, behind this guilt is the identity of I am a bad person, I'm not good enough, I'm a failure. So these identities fuel repeating mistakes actually, because guilt lowers vibration, right? If you look at the AWAKENS scale, guilt and shame are very low. And it keeps you stuck in proving your badness. So here's a quick process to release guilt, because this will also help you release regret, okay? So first thing is to focus on the guilt itself. Bring it up consciously instead of letting it lurk subconsciously, right? And identify the source. Who told you that you were bad? Or how did you tell it to yourself that you were a bad person? Okay? Write down what you like and treasure about yourself next. You cannot feel guilt and self-love at the same time. So what we're doing is now we're creating a self-appreciation list. And then you're setting new intentions. If you were unkind, you now commit to kindness. If you used to lie a lot, then you now commit to honesty. So when guilt arises, you say to yourself, this thought no longer applies to me. You have to learn to reframe it, right? And thank and dismiss the inner critic. Thank you for showing up. Recognize that they are an outdated protector, but just understand, your service is no longer needed. Thank you, okay? And now if you replace the guilt with a new identity, I'm a good person, I am enough, I bring peace, calm, and consciousness into my life now. The past doesn't exist. Only what you intend and do in the present moment matters. One of my mentors, he would tell me that to imagine the past like a wall, right? Imagine it like a wall, and every negative thing you have to say it to yourself, you say it behind you. And every positive thing, you say it in front of you, like you're moving forward into it. Isn't that brilliant, right? Of an understanding. Now, when guilt or regret arises, exhale and release it. Instead of engaging with it directly, immediately replace it with a self-respect or an admiration that you have for yourself, okay? And over time, this will build a new habit, because self-love dissolves guilt. It's like oil displacing water, right? In a similar way. So real guilt requires making amends. Unreal guilt is programming that can be dissolved by dismantling the bad person identity and committing to actually new choices and building a habit of self-love and appreciation. This morning I was listening to these Stoic affirmations for gratitude, immortal gratitude, right? And it felt really good. It felt really enlivening, and the voice was so deep and calming that it changed my consciousness as I was listening in the car before I headed to work. Now we have to understand the nature of regret, okay? Regret is painful because it shows us where we weren't good as we had hoped or expected ourselves to be. So it highlights the gap between our past actions and our present, more mature self. So regret is part of the cost of growth, right? With deeper awareness comes the shadow of what could have been. So regret is not a personal flaw. This is a very shared human experience. All people have it because all people are imperfect. And it can feel very isolating, but in truth, it's part of what connects us as human beings. Regret is the price of vision, in a sense. The cost of becoming wiser and more conscious over time, okay? So don't stress it. Now there's, of course, authentic regret and inauthentic regret. Authentic regret is based on your own values, right? Like you acted against your own values or against your own character integrity. And then there's inauthentic regret, which is again implanted by shame or external standards, right? The regret of not living up to others' expectations and so forth. So the key task is to discern whether your regret belongs to you or whether you're carrying someone else's values internally. Now there's constructive regret and destructive regret. Constructive helps you to learn and grow, right? Like regretting foolish behavior can prevent you repeating that foolish behavior. However, destructive regret is a constant chronic rumination that kind of paralyzes you and feeds addictive and self-defeating cycles. So this really empowers your inner critic, right? Regret empowers your inner critic. So you have to know yourself very deeply and discern authentic and inauthentic regrets through meditation, through self-reflection, okay? Allow it to change you at a deep values level. See it as life calling you towards higher possibilities. Now, inauthentic regret, don't repress or deny it, but observe it repetitively and mindfully until it wears itself out. Okay, so use naming actually. This is not my regret. This belongs to someone else's standards. Once you notice a hidden attachment, sometimes, we cling to regret as a way of staying bound to the past, right? Becoming aware of that actually breaks its stronghold. So when we start regretting the fact that we regret so much, our whole life can feel poisoned by it. And the way out is just mindful awareness, guys. Moment by moment, living through it until you grow beyond it. And often regret is life's way of calling us to develop real, authentic courage, because the courage we have to change or to face ourselves honestly is needed, right? The courage to live with a full heart despite history and self-doubt. So regret isn't something to escape. It's an invitation to live bigger, braver, freer. Now listen, I've coached people for many years, and what I understand is people regret inaction far more than failed attempts. Okay? The pain of not trying lingers much longer than the pain of failure. In other words, failure stings, but regret scars. So that means you want to ask yourself, what step are you avoiding today because of the fear of failure? Often people take risks, hard conversations, bold steps, new ventures, and find the outcome is way better than they expected. So failure isn't fun, but the price of avoidance is much heavier over time, guys. Don't take your health or mobility for granted. Move your body before you regret neglect. Relationally, repair your relationships before it's too late. Sometimes it requires apologizing. Sometimes it requires better communication. Sometimes it requires asking clarifying questions or avoiding assumptions, right? To risk that honest communication. So take risks, but calculated risks, okay? Be willing to confront truths with yourself and consider well-informed risks for your future security and your financial security. Now, avoid closed or leading questions like, are you mad at me? Use open clarifying questions. Who? What? Oh, how? Oh, when? Oh, where? Right? This actually reduces misunderstandings and helps you build a stronger connection. So risk is not just financial risk, it's emotional, it's relational, it's physical, it's spiritual, okay? So make sure you take the step now, okay? So you don't regret it later. The pain of failure fades, but the pain of regret compounds over time. So wherever you're hesitating, in your health, in your relationships, in your money, choose risk over regret. I'm telling you guys this. Risk is a flow state trigger. It's going to hijack your mind to be in the zone, right? So regret is much heavier though, and it takes away your feeling of flow. Why? Because it's pulling you into the past. Regret is more expensive, right? Regret is way more expensive than any short-term failure. And your regret is just your mind replaying a movie that already left the theater. The past is a dead land. And if you keep sending psychic energy there like some fool paying rent on a house that burnt down, then that's what you're going to get. So here's the play. You don't erase regret, you alchemize it. Every scar is a receipt that proves you lived. And every so-called mistake is a missed take, right, in the movie of your life. And it is the tuition that you have already paid. So instead of whining, I should have done this, I shouldn't have done that, you flip it. What muscle did that pain give me? What clarity did that mess teach me? Right? Because regret only bites when you refuse to harvest the wisdom. You can't wrestle the past into changing, but you can wrestle yourself into owning the lesson and walking forward with fire in your chest. So stay here, in this breath, in this step. The present moment is the only place you've got leverage, so you don't owe a past a damn drop of your energy. Regret is the ghost that shows up when you keep replaying the same scene in your head, thinking you can edit the past with your imagination. But hear me now. The past is written in stone, carved, sealed, and gone. You can cry over it, you can curse it, you can drown in what ifs, but it ain't moving. That's why regret is poison. It convinces you that looking backwards gives you power, when in reality, it's stealing your power you've got right now. Every time you feed that regret, you weaken your grip on the present moment. And the present moment is the only place that your hands can actually touch the wheel of your destiny. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying ignore the past, okay? Just treat it like a library, like the yogis do. I mean, ignoring the past is also just a trick of the weak mind, right? The past is a vault of lessons, but it's not your home. You can visit it, but you take the wisdom and you get out of there. You don't camp there, you don't build shrines to your mistakes, and you sure as hell don't rent space in your head to old failures. Regret becomes fuel when you can flip the question. Instead of saying, why did I do that? You ask, what did that teach me about who I am, and what will I never allow again? Suddenly, that scar isn't ugly anymore. It's a badge of honor. It's a receipt that proves you paid your tuition to stand here stronger, sharper, and wiser. You see, most people want the growth without the dirt, right? They want wisdom without the wounds. But hey, Uncle Makara is telling you, those wounds are your initiation. Regret is just the aftershock of resisting the truth that your soul demanded that experience, demanded that pain, to break you open in a way that nothing else could. So if you keep running from that truth, you will stay bitter. But if you face it, you transmute it. You shapeshift it, because now regret becomes reverence, because you see how far you've come since then. And don't think the universe made a mistake putting you through that. The exact same moment you're ashamed of is the same moment that sculpted your backbone, sharpened your instincts, right? Lit your fire. Without those past mistakes, you wouldn't even have the vision that you've got today. So why do you treat them like curses when they were the chisels carving your soul? Regret is a thief of time. Every second you sit in it, you let the past rob the future. You're standing at the door, but instead of walking through it, you keep looking back at the old one that was slammed shut. Yo, the handle's in front of you, man. And you're too busy staring at the lock behind you. That's why the Masters always tells you, presence is salvation. When you breathe, when you can drop into this moment, regret cannot survive. It's like a shadow that only lives when you shine your light backward. So shine it here and now, and then it dissolves. How do you handle regret? You stop feeding it. You harvest the lesson, you honor the wound, and then you slam that door shut on that memory like a boss. And you anchor in the now. Because this breath, this heartbeat, and you anchor in the now. Because this breath, this heartbeat is the only currency you've got. And when that old ghost comes knocking with its stories, you don't invite it in for tea. You say, thanks for the lesson, but I've moved on. And you keep on moving. Because no man or woman walking this earth ever transcended regret by replaying it. They transcended it by transforming it into fuel. So remember this, the past cannot be changed, but your relationship to the past can be changed. And once you master that, regret isn't a chain on your ankle anymore. It's firewood in your furnace. You burn it and you rise from it and you walk forward lit up. At least that's how Uncle Makara handles regret. Okay, I don't know about your mechanisms and ways. I'd love to learn more about your way of doing it too. But this is what I have to share with you today. Okay, thank you so much for tapping in. I hope you have an incredible rest of your day. May the flow keep winning. May the flow be with you. You got this, we got this. Upward spiral, gang, gang to infinity and beyond. Let's keep winning. Boom.